Hey everyone, I'm Leonardo, but everyone calls me Leo. I'm a software developer at Kreeftmeijer, and today I'll be talking about Gitflow and Hubflow and the potential improvements it can bring to your or your team's workflow. So in order to give you a proper insight on Gitflow, I'll split this talk into a few topics. I'll be covering what is Gitflow and how to use it, the pros and cons of following it, GitHub integration, usage tips, and some final words. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first question, what is Gitflow? Gitflow basically is a branching workflow for Git users. It was created by Vincent Driessen in 2010, and probably as every existing workflow, it tries to ease the pain of keeping a project organized as the development goes by. It also tries to tackle a problem fairly common faced by Git users, which is how to separate production-ready code from code under development and still keep it maintainable. Gitflow tries to solve this issue by proposing keeping two main branches and making use of supporting branches to move code around. We'll be going through all those different branches next. From the Gitflow main branches side, we have two different branches, which is the master/main and the develop branch. The first one, which will be referred as master for the purpose of this talk, is basically where production code is kept. And develop, on the other hand, is pre-production code. It's also where finished features will be merged to. A quick note on the main branches, no code should be pushed directly to those branches. Everything should come from moving code around through supporting branches. On the supporting branches side, we have three types of branches, which are feature, hotfix, and release branches. The first one is related to where features will be developed for upcoming releases. The feature branches should be created based on the develop main branch, and they will also be merged back to the develop branch once they are done. Hotfix and release branches behave a little bit differently. While hotfix branches are responsible for sending code immediately to the master, in other words, they bypass the develop branch. Release ones are created for preparation for a new production release. So they get code from develop. The hotfix branches are created based on the master branch and should be merged back to both master and develop branch. Release branches are created based on the develop one and should also be merged back to both master and develop branches. Release branches can also be used for minor bug fixing and metadata updating, such as updating the package version or stuff like that. So having went through all the different branches, we can have a quick look on how this workflow works on a day-to-day basis. So on this graphical representation, we have the master branch in blue, the hotfix branches in red, release branches in green, develop branches in yellow, and feature branches in pink. We can already tell that feature branches can exist in parallel, but at the end of the road, they will all be merged back to the same develop branch. This graphical representation also shows how hotfixes come from master and then are merged back to master and to the develop branch. We can see the rest of the workflow on this next image, where we can see the same thing for release branches. They are created based on develop, but are merged back to master and develop. And all the features end up being merged to develop. We can already also tell that thinking about the amount of merges that need to be done in order to accomplish the expected behavior of this workflow can be quite complex. So in order to achieve that, we also have some tools that can help along the way. Driessen, the one who developed the Gitflow proposal, went a little further and developed the Gitflow library of Git subcommands, which is basically a wrapper for Git commands. Having this in mind, this library is simply an automation to the whole process of following the Gitflow approach. So if we consider the git init command, in the Gitflow init perspective, it will not only initialize the folder as a Git repo, but it will also handle the creation of the develop and main branches or master. And with that, we can go through the Gitflow pros and cons. Oh, actually, I forgot to go through the usage of the other branches. We can also have use the commands for moving code around, which are related to feature, release, and hotfix branches. They all should be started, and once they're done with being worked with, they should be finished. A quick difference between feature and release and hotfixes branches is that usually we try to name the feature using like words, but release and hotfixes are usually go with the version of it. On the pros and cons, we can consider a few observations about Gitflow. On the pro side, we know that Gitflow allows team members to develop a shared understanding of the branching and releasing process. That's because they will have to learn a little bit and understand what should be a feature and what should be a hotfix, and understand how those go together. There's also an easy navigation across past versions, and Gitflow also shines when multiple versions should be kept in production. That can be seen with the history of the master branch, because every release tag has a different tag, and they all can be easily reached. And it has a systemic branching naming, which makes it easier to understand the workflow. On the other hand, on the cons side, we know that Git history can get cluttered over time by merge commits, especially with Gitflow, especially with Hubflow, which we'll go through next. It has complex logic with strict rules on branching interaction, and mistakes are more likely to happen, and the effort required to fix those is increased. Also, some operations require double merging. As we mentioned, release branches and hotfix branches require to be merged to both develop and master branches. And also, Gitflow can be quite troublesome if you're doing it manually. That's why the library exists. From the cons side, we can also notice that most of those are related to the learning curve. So the more you get used to it, the better it gets. But it's obviously a thing to be taken into consideration before starting working with it. And going a little bit further from Gitflow, we get to the GitHub integration. So we can go through Hubflow and the GitHub integration. Hubflow is basically a fork from Gitflow created by data safety, and is focused on making it as easy as possible to use Gitflow with GitHub. Since it's a fork, we can already expect that they should be quite similar. In that case, from the commands that we showed earlier, the main difference is that the flow is replaced by HF. From the perspective of initializing the repo and creating supporting branches such as feature, release, and hotfix, they behave quite the same. But the main differences come across the workflow when we try to work with the platform, which is GitHub. So on GitHub, Hubflow handles pushes and pulls by default whenever it's appropriate. For instance, whenever we try to create a release or a hotfix or even a feature branch, Hubflow will handle this creation not only locally but on remote as well. Also, GitHub allows an extra layer of branch protection, which is which is very nice because since Gitflow relies on merging and moving code across the repo, it's not usually a great idea to having everyone on your team able to merge code. And merges are now expected to be done through pull requests. So it's an opportunity to allow code reviewing and changes before it gets merged, whether it's to develop or main branches. And after I also gathered a few Gitflow and Hubflow users tips, which I wish I have got them when I first got to use Gitflow. So the first thing, protect your branches. As I mentioned, it's not a good idea to have everyone able to merge code on different branches, especially the main ones. Make sure you're a repo admin in case the main branches are protected from direct push. That is close to protecting the branch. But when we get to GitHub, depending on which kind of protection you're using, those branches might be blocked for direct push. But Gitflow, actually Hubflow, handles the back merging from the main branch to develop branch locally. So it merges when you are finishing a release or a hotfix. This is merged to main branch using a pull request, but it's merged back from main to develop locally. That means that the develop branch will push force it. And unless you're a repo admin, you can't bypass the branch protection. Also, pay close attention to merge conflicts, as obviously Gitflow and Hubflow won't be able to solve conflicts automatically. It will require user interaction. And in that case, you have to manually finish a commit or even a merge. And also plan ahead the order your features should get to production. That's quite interesting because we already know that features can be developed in parallel. But if the first merge should not get together with the second one on production, that's a problem. Because once the feature is on develop, it's quite hard to send another feature to production without sending the first one. So you should definitely be careful about that. Don't forget to add any commit to release branch and to add commit messages whenever prompted. That's especially when back merging commits from the master branch to develop, because since Gitflow and Hubflow attach a tag to each release, they will try to merge this tag back to develop. And if there aren't any commits on the release branch, or even there is no message to the commit which is trying to be merged, it won't work. So you end up without this proper commit on develop. When using Hubflow, make sure to merge PRs through merge commits. Even though Gitflow can be used with things such as squash merge and simply merging the commits without having a merge commit, that's not how Hubflow works. In order to properly finish hotfixes, releases, and features, you have to merge it through merge commits. And last but not least, keep a change log, because since Hubflow and Gitflow allows you to have different versions of your code separated by tags, it's a great opportunity to know what changed from each version. And some final words on that matter. The best way to use Git will always be controversial, but I hope you can keep this as an opportunity to seek for the one that fits your needs. And honorable mention that is kind of out of the scope of this talk is GitLab Flow, which was proposed by GitLab to replace Gitflow and obviously Hubflow. And that's it. Thank you, everyone. You can reach out to me in case you have any questions or comments through my email. And also, I left some useful links and some references from this talk on the comments down below. And just a quick reminder that CodeMiner is always hiring, and you can reach out through our website or even become at codeminer42.com.